Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Anyegolu. So to the sad news that Bill and Melinda Gates are divorcing. In parallel statements, they described it as a difficult and personal decision and requested that we respect their privacy. Bill and Melinda are, of course, very important as philanthropists, and so lots of people are talking about what that means. Their names are tied together in the very title of the foundation that they formed, which has been the vehicle for spreading much of the enormous wealth they amassed through Microsoft by Bill. Most of it has been spent on health projects in the developing world. The foundation has had a huge impact, especially in Africa, combating malaria. The foundation has also, of course, been interested in COVID vaccine development and distribution, as well as climate change issues. Let's take a look back to just last year, when the former couple reflected on what they had achieved with their foundation over the past 20 years.
What we eventually did with the foundation.
We realized how little we knew about Africa and the people. People were dealing with a lot of challenges. The annual letter this year is reflecting on 20 years of the foundation.
20 years worth of work and what we've seen that's made a difference and what the progress has been.
Well, extreme poverty's gone down dramatically. Very good.
We are seeing people's health in Africa getting better, particularly children under the age of 5. Vaccines are getting out there rather quickly, certainly compared to before.
In the case of pneumonia and diarrhea, there was a great vaccine being used in the rich countries. We made sure the financing was there to get it out to all the children in the world. Being a partner in the vaccine fund Gavi, that's been a spectacular success.
Global Fund, which helps with AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. We were not only part of funding, we were part of the measurement to know whether the money was being spent effectively. With the right partnerships, you have to be able to measure things to know whether life is improving for people.
We decided that needed to become a serious part of our work.
The fact that the foundation is 20 years old, it's a bit of a shock. It's like, wow.
Bill and Melinda Gates there talking about their foundation. And joining me from London for more on this story is Arise correspondent Judita Silva. Good to see you, Judita. And it all looks rather sad watching both of them and the incredible work that they've done through their foundation. We'll talk about that foundation in a minute, but just talk to us about this decoupling and what you're hearing about what might have led to it.
I think, first of all, what is most noticeable about Bill and Melinda Gates is that for such a public union, public figures, they're very private as people. So what we're having to do is piece together the puzzle from the information that's out there. And one of the biggest things with very public couples is language. She said the word decoupling. Remember when Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin said conscious uncoupling? That is suggesting to people that it is not acrimonious and it's done with both people being on the same page. But like they always say, when it comes to these big divorces, follow the money. And what I've been able to read just today was the actual filing for divorce that had happened with Melinda Gates. It turns out that Melinda was the one who filed late yesterday. And they always say that the person who files is the aggrieved party. And the key things with that came out from the divorce filing is she said that spousal support is not needed, but she's also had an automatic financial restraints, which says that neither one of them can change any insurance policies or sell any properties. So that suggests that finances are going to be very important as far as what her stake is and what she can get out of it. Because what we know is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is based in Washington, and they live in Washington, and Washington is a community state, which means that any wealth amassed during the marriage can be split 50-50. So looking from the outside and the little things we can get from this very private couple in a very public situation, it looks like Melinda Gates is the party who really wants out. What we will find out is when we start to see the financial terms of the divorce, we'll be able to piece the motivations and the sentiments behind it.
Well, that's very interesting indeed, because I understand that they never signed a prenuptial agreement, but they have what's called a separation contract that stipulates how they'll split their wealth. I mean, any idea what might be in that separation contract?
The terms, like I just mentioned, about the financial restraints, and also with there not being a prenuptial agreement, it says that any decision going forward from now on, their debts for each individual will be borne by themselves, but any changes must be agreed in writing. And so what it tends to do is that it's almost like a way of doing, even though you went into the marriage without a prenup, it's saying that now that anything bad happens, we're moving in synergy to prevent things getting messy. So a separation contract deals with the mathematics of the funding so that you don't get bogged down in the minutia. So it's the way wealthy people tend to do splits when they don't want mess. And also it's important, it's the way wealthy people do splits when both of them independently have a very high stake. And remember, we're not dealing with millionaires, we're dealing with billionaires. So to put it in perspective, let's say, according to Forbes, they say that Bill Gates is worth 124 million. According to Bloomberg, they say it's 148 million, not 124. If Melinda gets 1% out of the divorce, she's still going to be a billionaire. So when you're thinking about that mentality, the attitude towards the divorce is not as petty, is not as vindictive, because, you know, even in the worst case scenario, you're going to come out of this very well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and I think you meant billion there, because your lips looked like you were saying million. But let's just be clear that that's $124 billion, and that doesn't include the 50 billion or so odd dollars that's in the foundation. I mean, that's clearly more than you and I make. But in terms of how the foundation will operate, I mean, they've said that they want to keep it going. They are co-chairs, and apparently there are only 3 board members. Warren Buffett is the other member. It's the biggest private foundation in the world, and they've both built it from the ground up together. Does that make it unlikely that one of them would not want to see it continue to do what it does now?
I think actually the foundation is probably when you probably identify the reasons behind this divorce, I believe. Because what happens with a lot of wealthy couples who have foundations is they end up splitting the foundation. So what you might end up seeing is 2 tent poles under the same umbrella. So you will begin to understand the Melinda Gates identity of philanthropy separate from the Bill Gates identity of philanthropy, because we know Bill Gates is very much into technology and ecology. She's into sociology, so she cares more about women and families. He cares more about the climate and vaccines and developing health. So when you see that, they're very committed and very rational about keeping the foundation going and the good work going. What we might probably see is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation begins to operate in synergy, but on 2 different avenues.
I mean, yes, no, absolutely. I've heard that as well. Clearly, there is enough money to go around, and the sums, I mean, are so staggering. They can do whatever they want with that kind of latitude. But if Melinda Gates walks away with a large settlement, which seems likely, perhaps in the tens of billions of dollars, you can see her setting up her own foundation, can you? That, you know, where she might focus on her great passion, such as women's empowerment and that sort of thing.
Yes, because Melinda Gates already set up her own private ventures foundation in 2015, which focuses on women and families. And one key thing that I found out was that in her memoirs, which she wrote, The Moments of Lift, she said that setting up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation helped to make their relationship better, because it's taught Bill how to be more equal as a partner, and it taught her how to step up to be more equal. So there's an understanding that equity, gender equity, is at the very heart of how Melinda Gates functions. And that might be the root of the situation, because what you see is that she mentioned that even when they were dating, Bill Gates is very methodical. He had a whiteboard where he had a list saying the pros and cons of them getting married. his attitude to that would probably be rub her the wrong way when it comes to the passion she has for the equality of the genders, if he wants to focus on the climate. And having a foundation that she is a chair on, that doesn't really push their weight behind it because one of the members isn't that focused on it, would rub her the wrong way. And when you're thinking about the money, for instance, when you look at everyone's having comparisons to another billionaire tech divorce, which was Jeff Bezos. His divorce was very simple because it was all tied up in Amazon. He had a 16% stake, and based on Washington, D.C. rules, it should have been split 50-50, but his wife was happy to take only a quarter, which turned out to be 4% and was valued at $38 billion. With Bill Gates, it's very different. Only $26 billion of his $124 billion net worth is from Microsoft. The rest is tied up in various different ventures. That's what's going to get very messy. So if that separation contract is going to be valuable to establish what stake she has in every part of his net worth and what she can come out with. And from then on, we'll see what kind of money does she want to put into the ventures she cares about.
It just sounds absolutely fascinating. The perils of being married not only to a billionaire, in fact, a multi-billionaire, but also to a rather nerdish one. I mean, I've read a lot of people sympathizing with Melinda Gates. I mean, along the lines of what you were talking about there, a very methodical man, writing, making notes and so on, the rules that you'd have to sort of, conform to. I mean, what's been the general reaction to this separation leading to divorce between Bill and Melinda Gates?
Everyone is pretty much taken aback because no one saw it coming, which again goes to them being so private. And on the legal side, no one actually knows the date where they separated. We know that she filed yesterday, but they don't know when they separated. So we don't know how long the marriage has been on the rocks. And everyone has just said that they're so taken aback because they are arguably one of the most powerful and influential couples in the world. In 2016, they got the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama. They are that level of couple, and this synergy and the union between them was seen as unbreakable. And for now, in the court documents, to have Melinda Gates describe it as irretrievably broken, something fundamental has gone wrong. And that's why everybody is so shocked, because they were very good at keeping it quiet. But then, like you say, like when you look at billionaire divorces, the stakes are so high that you have to have two people that are willing to see the bigger picture. And it seems like everyone's saying Bill and Melinda Gates are those kinds of people. Because when you look at someone like Jane Fonda and Ted Turner, who started CNN, even though it was kind of acrimonious when they split, such was her respect for the work he did for the wildlife and the preservation of the buffaloes in America, and also for climate change. She took up the cause, and now she's known as one of the biggest advocates for climate preservation. The same can happen here. On the other side of this, people believe that they are so rational and so focused on the good work. That is more important to them than any personal grievance.
We've got less than a minute, Judita. You mentioned there that the court documents gave a sense of a marriage that's irretrievably broken down. No sense at all that it can be saved or salvaged?
I don't think there is, because based on her filing with the kind of terminology in that paperwork, this is a woman who wants out, and not just out. You can see she has a clear vision for what she's going to do next. Their youngest child is 18, so they're all at a stage where the children can handle this kind of change. So it seems like all the pieces are in place for there to be a seismic shift within the structure of the Gates family.
Judita, thank you very much indeed. Judita DASILVA, our correspondent there, talking to me from London about the Bill and Melinda Gates divorce. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead, including the culmination of another terrible week for the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He's now under investigation and trailed by questions about his humanity, probity and integrity. Stay with us.